What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. It is chilly, 30 degrees, going to be high of around 64 with a little bit of a chance of rain overnight. So, pretty much a nice day most of the day. 5:37 is the sunrise, and 7:54 is the sunset. So, pretty soon the sun's going to start coming up as I'm doing these videos here. Um, so we're doing a study of sowing and what we sow, how we sow, why we sow, and the harvest that comes from that, right? And we looked at sowing in the flesh and sowing by the flesh, and then we're looking at now sowing by the Spirit. And our verses, our thematic verses for this little series are Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 and 8. Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. Be not deceived. God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that he also shall reap. For he that soweth to the flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that soweth of the Spirit shall reap life everlasting. He that soweth of the Spirit shall reap life everlasting. And we saw that out of Psalm 126 yesterday. And so today there's a proverb, right? A proverb I want to look at with you. And it's out of chapter 11, Proverbs chapter 11, and verse 18. It says, the wicked earns deceptive wages, but one who sows righteousness gets a sure reward. So, wicked earns deceptive wages, right? So, wickedness, right, starts in the heart. And what comes out of that, right? Well, deceptive wages, okay? Deceptive wages. And I like the King James rendering of it. The wicked worketh a deceitful work, right? So the heart, right, works of a wicked person works a deceitful work. So doing something for themselves, right? Not for the kingdom, or doing something that is, well, not righteous, but sneaky, or with ulterior motives, right? And that wage, right? The wage he earns is deceptive. It's sneaking, right? It's sneakily. It's something that maybe seems like a good wage but isn't, right? And so those wages of the flesh, the things we reap of the flesh, they're corruptible, right? They're corruptible. There's nothing everlasting in that. So it's a deceptive rich or deceptive wage. It's a deceptive earning. It's not storing up things in heaven, right? It's deceptive in what you get out of it. But one who sows righteousness gets a sure reward. And so when we sow from a spirit of righteousness, from the Spirit of God, in the Spirit, right, the reward is sure. The life everlasting, you guys, is as sure as, me touching my hand, right? Even more sure, right? Even more sure, because my hand's not guaranteed to work tomorrow or stay on, but life everlasting for the believer is guaranteed, right? It is sure. But I also I want to look at some of these other verses that are right around here. So let's look at Proverbs 11:17, and we'll go through 21, because these all are about the wicked side and the righteous side. A man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurts himself. Okay, So a man who is kind, right, will reap something that's beneficial, right? But a cruel man hurts himself, right? So when you're cruel to others, all you're storing up for yourself is pain, right? All you're storing up for yourself is pain. And notice the cruel man to somebody else, you're not just hurting them. What you're bringing back to yourself is going to be pain. Okay, it's amazing how that works. Um, then verse 18, the wicked earns deceptive wages, but one who sows righteousness gets a sure reward. Whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live. Yeah, because like we were looking at from Psalm 126 yesterday, when the world is crashing down around us, the thing we cling on to is our faith, right? Our faith, and that's what allows us to be steadfast in righteousness when it's nothing but wickedness around us. And what's the reward? Life, right? Steadfast in righteousness will live, but he who pursues evil will die. Look how sure he is in that saying. It's not might die, it's will die. Yeah. So when you pursue evil, what do you reap? Everlasting death. And that's as sure as the the hand that I'm holding up, right? Like we just talked about. And if the man who pursues evil for their whole life, outside of regeneration, reconciliation, and repentance, there's no other place but eternal damnation, eternal hell, eternal distance from God. Verse 20, those of a crooked heart are an abomination to the Lord. All right. So that wicked person who earns deceptive wages, that cruel man who hurts himself, the one who pursues evil that's going to die, right? Those of a crooked heart. That's those of a crooked heart. And what are they? An abomination to the Lord. An abomination to the Lord is the the worst thing one could ever be, right? The something that is abominable. It is like piercing to his eyes, right? An abomination. It is something that um, God hates. Now let's look at the other side of that. On verse 20, but those of blameless ways are his delight. Yeah, those of blameless ways. Now, how do you how do you operate in a blameless way? Okay, and it's from the heart. It's from operating in the spirit. It's from sowing in the spirit versus sowing in the flesh. Because see, a lot of people don't operate in the spirit, and they do on the surface what looks like to be good things, and they want good things, and they stand for honor and uh, things on the surface that look to be, one might say, pleasing to the Lord. But when they're operating in the flesh, those things are the reward is it's a deceptive wage. See, it's a deceptive wage because wicked people can do good things, right? Wicked people don't always only do cruel um, things or cruel behavior or act cruel to somebody or um, but those wages are deceptive. Yeah, those wages are deceptive because ultimately, if you're not walking in the spirit, you're walking in the flesh, right? And so those good things that um, that person does, that carnal man does, those wages are deceptive because they're only serving himself, right? You're only serving yourself, and that's what um, separates a good non-believer from a good Christian, It's who do we serve, right? Who do we serve? Or even a, a bad non believer and a bad Christian, right? Who do we serve? And is there repentance, right? Because a non believer, they act and there's no repentance. There's no turning. There's no turning back to the Lord, right? Seeking His forgiveness, right? And for the believer who walks in misconduct, if they are a believer, there will be repentance. Period. Okay. Period. Um, so, but those of blameless ways are His delight. Be assured. Okay. Be assured. So, you can rest in this statement: an evil person will not go unpunished. An evil person will not go unpunished. So, Christian, if there's an evil person out there and um, they're causing strife with you and in you and making things difficult, be assured that evil person will not go unpunished. Everybody's going to be judged, y'all. Everybody, and ain't nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can do about it is get saved. Right? That's the only thing you can do about it. And you can't even really do anything about that. There needs to be an act of God, right? And a response, right? An act of God in your heart, and then a choice to respond to Him. And outside of that, right? That in that judgment, there's everlasting life, right? You're walking in the Spirit, then you'll be sowing in the Spirit and be sowing up righteousness, and the wages will be solid. They'll be solid, not deceptive, but solid. Now, here, the evil person will not go unpunished. Well, be rest assured, and these wages are solid too. It's going to be eternal death. Eternal death. They might be in this life thinking that they're storing up wages, but really it's just walking to eternal death. But the offspring of the righteous will be delivered. The offspring of the righteous will be delivered. So, for a righteous person, a righteous man, a righteous woman, there's some hope. There's some hope for your children, right? There is. The offspring of the righteous will be delivered. Now, we can interpret that as believers, believers of Christ, because who's the righteous? Christ, right? The offspring of the righteous, the offspring of Christ, will be delivered. Yeah, will be delivered. Now here, um, this is written by Solomon, so this is before captivity. But think about um, in when Israel went into captivity, who was released, right? It was those that the children of those that hung on to righteousness, in the time of trouble, right? In the time of trouble. So parents, right? Parents, hang on to righteousness. Be righteous in this time, in this culture where everything is, pouring down around you. A lot of how we live is a world in a world of captivity, right? We're surrounded as if we were in Babylon, and all we can do is cling to the righteous, cling to Christ, cling to righteousness in the midst of the darkness. And guess what? Our offspring that see it, will have it, will have that opportunity, will see the Lord, will know of the Lord, and hopefully the Lord does something in their heart and they come to know the Lord and submit to Him, and will be delivered the same way. Will be delivered the same way. All right, y'all. I'm already ran over time, but have a good day.